Hello, travelers, listeners, and however many names I've used for you already this year. Welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diaries podcast, and thank you for sitting around the fire with me again as we talk to a new indie developer from the indie game development community. This is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, and as usual, before we dive into the episode, I want to shout out to my amazing patrons, Feinoko, Zagini, Fishbump Dev, and Peleg. You guys are beautiful. Your support every month really means a lot, and you make this even more special every single month. Thank you so much for your support. If you too, listeners, would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/theindiediarist or theindiediarist.com to find all the different ways in which you can get involved. Now, before we get into the episode, there is one thing I have to mention. There were some audio track issues on Jake's side for this one, so you may hear a little bit of tapping. I know it can get a little bit annoying. I try to remove it as much as possible, but yes, unfortunately, it's there all the same. But I hope you'll stay because this is a beautiful episode. So, let's get into it. All right, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, that's showing the human stories behind indie game development. Speaking to you today is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, writer, narrative designer, and senior content manager in social media. And I've got a very special guest with me today, who's Jake from Nibble and Bite Games. So, Jake, just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're based, and I hope I did say the name of your studio right.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, great.
I've had a few legal companies working with them call me and be like, "That's an interesting name." But all right, yeah, I'm Jake. I go with the term director for Nibble and Bite Game Studio, even though I'm the only employee that's like fully on the roster. Started about a year ago working on our first real title. During the day, I have a full-time job doing something totally not game dev. Starting a family, got a 20-month-old daughter and a wife. She's 29. She's not 20 months old, but that'd be weird. But I think that's kind of the groundworks. I've been playing video games since I was about 14. And ever since then, I've wanted to kind of get into the industry in whatever way I can. Yeah, great. And well, that's a great intro. And what I always like to do on these episodes is like ask a little bit of an icebreaker, which is a little fun question to start. So, if you could be any game's character for a day, who would that be and why? I watched like 3 of your most recent episodes. I even knew this question.
So you knew.
But I'm still not prepared. Like, all right. I was like, in the hour leading up to this, I was still like, what am I going to answer that question with? Like, because I play a lot of like first person shooters, or like, like strategy games. So I think if I had to be a main character for a day, I feel like the character from Astroneer would be fun to be as, in like this universe you could explore, but would be like equally terrifying. I don't know if that's like a cop out for not picking a named character, but I feel like that character being in that world would be kind of fun to have, since, you know, like they say about our generation is we're bored too late to explore the world and too early to explore space. So having those experiences, I think that'd be fun. And I like a challenge, so.
And you like a challenge, yeah, of course you do, yeah. And we'll get to challenges and just development in general, your life later. But I always like to start from the beginning for these episodes and for these episodes. So I wanted to think back to your childhood. Like, what is your earliest or fondest memory that involves video games?
My very first memory that involves anything to do with video games is I had the old Game Boy, like the big gray brick, when I was like 8 years old, and I don't even remember, it was a Mario game, and I remember always being so ticked off that I couldn't get past like the 3rd level, and then I put it down, came back, I don't even know how long later, but picked it up and actually got almost to the end of the game, and then why was this hard? But I was like, like, what was I doing? Was I stupid? And I was like, oh no, I was like 8.
Isn't it always that way with challenging games anyway? Like once you beat them, you're like, why was that even hard in the first place? It felt absolutely like a breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens on a few games. Yeah, you beat it on like hard, and then you go back and replay hard, and like this isn't. I've mastered this though. So then you go up to the higher difficulty.
Yeah. Oh, it's true. It's true. Yeah, I remember when I played like I suppose when I played the first God of War on PS2, I remember, and I loved that game so much, and I played every single difficulty level, and I got to the end of like the God mode, and then once you start playing normal mode again, it's like it's just too easy. You're like, what is this?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just it's the learning curve, and then you do things that you didn't know you could do, like just even with Doom Eternal, for example. The end is so tough, but if you go to the beginning, it's so tough for you because you've just started as well. But once you go to the end and you start again, you're like, wow, no, this is a breeze. This is so fun.
It was actually the game that was in my head because I played it on Ultra Nightmare, I think it was. The one before Permadeath.
I haven't had the guts to play Ultra Nightmare.
It's hard.
I can do that.
It took like 20 hours, but I played it on that, and I'm like, this was fun. I want to replay it. And then I went back and played the first one. Like, I'm so bored. Like, I've beaten it on this crazy, sweaty, impossible difficulty, and then now I go back. It's like, I need to find a new game, I guess.
Well, yeah, you're a Doom fan, so I guess. This question might be, well, apart from Super Mario and such, I suppose you like shooters as well, and space games, which is pretty pretty clear from the game that you're working on right now, which we'll get to. But which games do you remember playing growing up, and do you think they're having an influence on what you're working on right now?
Absolutely. I mean, the fondest memory I have, and I think I heard you talking to some of your other interviewees about it, but Halo Reach was like the first game that I got into. It was like, wait a second. This is what it can be. Like up until then, I had played like Mario Kart. I had played my first GameCube game was Wave Race Blue Storm, which is a jet skiing game. Then you get Halo Reach, and like I need to know more. I need to know more about it. So like the name of my game is The Fall of Aether Station, and the tone that I wanted to set is very similar to that of Halo Reach. I wanted it to be no. The player will eventually lose, kind of like how it's like its first trailer, I think when it came out, was like from the beginning you know the end, and the same thing with like Project Zomboid, where it says this is how you died. Like I wanted to set that tone, so I sent a bunch of the soundtrack to my audio guy. But then the other game that I have like super fond memories of growing up with is Star Wars Empire at War, which is the mechanical inspiration for the game. So I'm like, when I wanted to make a game, I was like, I want to make this or something like this, but I am not nearly a good enough programmer to do this. So how can I water it down? Yeah, exactly. Now I feel a lot better, but 2 years ago,
it's just like playing Doom Eternal on Nightmare Hell difficulty. Yeah. Then you go back and you're like, well, actually, that wasn't that bad. So, yeah.
Exactly. But they're huge influences to me, and those are games that I like. I still go back and play a lot.
And of course, you might remember this question from previous episodes, but when did you realize you wanted to become a game developer? When did you realize you wanted to make games, move from playing them to making them? Was that like some sort of a aha moment, an epiphany, or something like that?
So this might sound like really corny or cheesy or even like self-assured, but like I had a YouTube channel where I was reviewing indie games and like providing them development feedback and like giving them trying to give them in-depth play tests of things, and I did that for probably 3 years. But I had never had a game of my own, and I started to kind of feel like an imposter of like, well, I don't have any of my own creativity out there. I've never put myself out there for doing it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a really dumb game. Like, I don't care if it's good. I don't care if it looks good, plays good, or fun. I'm just going to get from start to finish through the process. So I made a shovelware mobile game, and then stopped for a while. And then I tried to do a couple other games, but the thing that kicked me into gear that was like, all right, I gotta figure this out. And this is where it might be a controversial thing, is the launch of Halo Infinite.
Okay.
It launched. I'm like, all right, somebody's got to do something about this. I'd love the opportunity to do something about this, but I have no resume. Like, nobody's going to hire me. So it's like, okay, well, now I actually need to make a good game to start proving that I can do something. So the launch of Halo Infinite was what kicked me in the butt and was like, start doing this. If you want to be taken seriously, you got to do something.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's interesting. I haven't had anyone saying that the launch of a game actually pushed them to over the edge and to actually start doing games. That is well, Halo Infinite was an interesting launch.
It was
definitely.
So much promise. So much. Yeah. You look at the art and you see so much love from the art team, and then you look at the management and you just. I don't know what happened.
Unfortunately,
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever know unless someone like, I don't know, Jason Schreier does like a whole report on it and such, and starts digging. But yeah, it's unfortunately the games industry, and we've seen from last year actually, the games industry unfortunately is not in a great state right now. Lots of layoffs and studios being closed, as there always were. But at the same time, it feels like so many people are just without a job right now. So. It's not the greatest industry to be, unless you're indie and you have a dream and you want to make games for a living by yourself and such, and maybe you can find your own spot. But like AAAs, they seem like they're kind of falling to pieces lately.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but some of them definitely. So.
Yeah, and you see on Reddit like all the. I was thinking about this and wondering if this topic would come up because it's such a big thing in the industry. With like, I think it came out 14,000. Game developers were announced as layoffs in like the last quarter of 2023, and I see.
Imagine all those people having to find a job now. Like,
well, I see
it's crazy.
You see all these people talking on Reddit about like down on the industry and like, man, the bubble's popping. AAA studios are going to be just fine. It's all us indies that are going to suffer. And I'm like, I don't want to get into an argument on Reddit because, that. Yeah. But I'm historically bad at that. And that's one of the areas that I'm trying to improve is not getting arguments.
It's Reddit. It takes it out from anybody. Like, yeah, it's just. But like, it happens.
One thing, and I'm kind of leveraging your platform here to share something that I've really wanted the indie dev community to hear.
Please do. Yeah.
Like, there is no fraction of the pie for indie games that is more equipped to handle a bubble popping than the indie dev community. We're so agile. We can respond to these things so quickly. Like,
I totally agree, yeah.
When things are getting hard, there's two things you can do as a team, and this is what I take away from like my management experience, which I know I'll talk about my job later. But you can either shrink and just try and get through, or you can retool your teams and thrive in this environment. And look at all the talent that's now on the bench. Look at all the talent that's looking for a new job. Indie studios should be looking at this as like a gold mine for talent for their studios. Is okay, that other guy that was going to go and take a job for a crazy amount of money that we could never offer, now we can approach them and see if they have a passion for what we're doing, and maybe they buy into our vision and can take it to that next level. Like, indie game studios are just so equipped to handle that, and I wish more people in the industry would see it as a positive thing for them and leverage it to really make their dreams come true, because I think this is another indie game gold rush we're coming up on.
Yeah, it's exactly the thing that it's exactly what I meant just a moment ago when I said that I think unless you're indie and you have a dream and such, because indies are so resilient. Like, indie developers, I've spoken to over 30 different indie developers in the past year, and they all strike me for the same kind of qualities, and the same kind of qualities that I'm sure will come out during this chat from you as well, which is indie developers are just resilient. They just know how to bounce back. They just know how to learn from their mistakes and pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and go into the distance and just try and do something else that might work better. AAA is, it's a bubble. We know it's going to burst. I'm not sure it's going to necessarily burst right now, because all these predictions and forecasts are always very very doomsday-like. But at the same time, there might be, as you say, another indie gold rush, just like in the not early, but like first 2010s or something, or even a bit earlier than that. But yeah, great point. Anyway, I totally agree with you. And when it comes to your management experience and such, so I know from your bio that you are that you work in aerospace software.
Yep.
And you manage a team. So I suppose when you decided to become a game developer, you already had some previous knowledge and such. So did you study programming at uni? How did you get to your current job?
Yeah, so there's a funny anecdote there. Is when I was playing games as a kid, my mom told me that I'd never be able to make a living sitting in front of a computer, and I said, "I'll show you." So I went to school.
Haven't I heard that story before?
Yeah, I went to school for software engineering, got a 4-year degree, got a job right out of school as a software engineer working on safety critical airborne software. So really high rigor stuff that if it fails, somebody's going to have a really bad day.
Yeah.
So you gotta have all this really tight rigor, and then going through that, there's a lot of standards, a lot of processes, and I got up to being a manager pretty quickly. Actually, I've had a pretty crazy, fast-paced career that I'm really proud of. And to now being a manager of 16 software engineers, working in a whole host of military and commercial projects. And so that's where I've kind of like not everyone, a lot of people talk about the hardest part of indie game development is not the development, it's the management and the discipline. And I'm like, well, I already got that. Like, are you saying I already got the hardest part out of the way? And then I was like talking to some people like, Mom, I haven't quite proven you wrong all the way yet. So,
but I'm about to.
Yeah, I got a little bit more to prove here, but I know I have an amazing relationship with my mom. We said she said that in her speech at my wedding, so she brought up that story. So
yeah, okay, so she knows.
Yeah, it's all an inside joke for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I mean, actually, I suppose I'm not making money out of my passion for games. I kind of did for a little bit, but I was a games journalist, but even then it wasn't really money. It was just more passion and just trying to build my experience. But I've always wanted to be a writer, and fortunately my parents kind of supported that from the start. Although, office jobs and fixed, how can I say, like permanent job and workplace and such. So those are like kind of the things that my parents' generation from Italy aspired to. Just having one job to stay in the rest of your life, because it would give you financial security and a way to create a family. But in my case, I mean, of course I've got self-doubt because, writing doesn't necessarily always pay the bills. I had to carve my own way, but I do get totally what you say. And I do hear from a lot of people that, artists or creative people or even developers who wanted to make games for a living, that maybe they didn't always have the support of their parents. But I think it's normal. Like, our parents are there to encourage us and protect us from harm. So that's what they always try to do, depending on what they think they know is best. But yeah, so I guess we can actually, for this question, usually it's about game development. But in your case, maybe we can talk about something else too. Is there a particular development challenge that has left a mark on you? And if so, any big learnings that you want to share for other devs? And it looks like you're working in, as you mentioned, a very tightly regulated sector. So I suppose you will have some stories from there, maybe.
Oh man, it's kind of just like, I can't talk specifics about my day job.
Of course.
There's
the limits of what you can share.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of challenges, and there's kind of like a grouping of challenges that I would say. And kind of like when I talk to, and hopefully this gives some people hope, but like when I do interviews to hire people at a day job, it comes down to rules. Rules are there for a reason. Some of those are not as good of a reason. And some of those rules are, it's not that they're meant to be broken, but they're meant to be like discussed and dismissed. Some rules you only break because you know why it's okay to break them.
Yeah.
Like speeding on the highway. That's breaking a rule.
Yeah.
But say you're trying to get to like a loved one in an emergency. An officer's not going to give you a ticket for that because they understand you know the rule, but this is a scenario in which it warranted breaking the rule. Well, there's the same kind of rules in like certification. There are certain rules that are, you should do this. But there are select scenarios in which it's okay to not, and the people auditing you are not going to tell you those reasons. But if you bring them to them, they'll think about it. And so the biggest challenge is learning those lessons of, okay, well, in my code, I can't do this. Usually.
But maybe this time I can get away with it.
Yeah, maybe like I have a good reason. It's safe. Like it's not gonna. The big thing in aviation is determinism. So it's okay if it fails as long as it fails exactly the same way every single time. In a predictable and well-defined way. So knowing and being able to say like, look, here's the evidence, it's safe, but it's not great. We also, I guess, that's kind of the main theme. A thing came to my head is so in embedded software, you have your code. You don't have direct access to it. It's not just running. It's not running on your machine. It's running on a processor that's embedded inside an FPGA. So it's got like 3 or 4 layers before you can actually see the source code. And sometimes you can't like hook up a device like a debugger to look into it. But we need to read things real time. Like we need to see what variables are changing, what the code's doing. So the code ran at like basically a nanosecond per cycle. Like this loop completed once every nanosecond. So variables were updating every nanosecond. So I came up with the idea of, well, what if we just wrapped it all in a true false thing and just blipped true on one of these variables so it only ran a cycle when I want it to. That way, the code thinks it's running at full speed, but it's actually running at the speed that I want it to. So we wrapped the whole software in this little...
Introduced an element of control, of course.
Yeah. So that way we could step kind of through it. And that was... I know it sounds really simple and dumb, but it took a while to get to it because we were so focused on trying to find a smart option. And I'm like, okay, well, we haven't found a smart one, so can we go with my dumb one now? The time for smart ideas has passed. Now it's time for
I guess it's always
ideas.
like that, isn't it? When you're trying to solve some sort of coding challenge or something like that, it's always like when you get to the solution, you're like, was it that easy? But then you have to spend like hours and hours trying to think about what the solution might actually be. Now, in your case, the dumb solution probably came to you right away, but they were trying to look for a smart solution that never came. So in the end, you could have saved all the time, most likely, and probably money in that case.
And to be clear, they said my idea was dumb, and I agree. I agree it was a dumb idea. Like, they were right to dismiss it as a dumb idea.
They were absolutely right to dismiss it, but it worked. So I guess.
It's not that I was like, oh, pushed to the wayside because I had a dumb idea because I was a junior engineer. No, my idea was dumb. It was a dumb idea, but it worked.
It was a dumb idea. But yeah. So, well, another point from your bio, and this is where we start getting a bit closer to game development now again. In the bio you share with me, you mentioned having suffered from undiagnosed ADD. Now, of course, I know you are comfortable talking about it, but if you are comfortable talking about it, what have you learned from that period when it was still undiagnosed? And what learnings might you have with what you have to share with developers who might be struggling with similar feelings?
So it was, I didn't get diagnosed until maybe 3 years ago, I think. I tried some medications in like early college, but I never liked how they made me feel. I never got a formal diagnosis, so I didn't keep with it. I always kind of struggled in school. Like I joke around that I was smart enough to be the dumb kid in the advanced classes. So, but I never really knew why that was, and no one in my family ever really knew why that was. They were very supportive in trying to figure something out, but it was like something that never occurred to us. I never really talked about how I was feeling or how I was doing things. And it was like days where I'm feeling down and can't figure it out. I'm like, well, what the heck is wrong with you, dude? Like, just do it. Like, just get up and do it. And it got to the point where I was feeling like actual pain in my arms when there was a task where I had to do, and my brain was like, no, I don't want to do this. Like my arm would like sometimes lock up, and I had no idea what that was. Turns out I found out that, or at least I'm pretty sure that it turned out to be executive dysfunction, just my body actually fighting back. And then what I found out, sorry if that vibration came through the mic, it had to do with, it was just boring. Like it was always tedious and boring tasks. So I started looking for ways to make things fun. Okay, if it can't make it fun, can I make it a challenge? Can I make it harder than it needs to be, so then I can finish it faster than I would have if it wasn't harder? And that kind of led to my whole philosophy in game dev that's really helped me like move along and really helped motivate me is, if it's not fun to develop, it's probably not going to be fun to play. So
I like that.
I will continue to develop a game until it stops being fun to develop. And this game I'm working on now, The Fall of Aether Station, there's been a few times where it has not been fun to develop. And so I set it down, and maybe I didn't come back to it for a month or two. And I worked on a couple other prototypes that didn't make it as far, but were fun to develop. I've kind of tricked my brain into seeing that playing a video game and making a video game are the same activity. So now it's all fun. Like my brain's like, I want to do that. That is dopamine that I can get access to and enjoy. There are challenges there that I've never conquered before. And it's really helped turn like the development experience from what might be like a grind to something that it's a really fun game for me. It's not, oh no, I have to solve this problem. It's, oh man, I can't wait to see what it looks like when I solve this problem.
Right. I can see what you mean, and of course, there will be times when your game doesn't feel fun anymore to develop. But it's great that you were able to, first off, just take a break from it, because it's something that a lot of people recommend, just to take a break and then go back to it when you feel like it. And you've always been able to then find the fun in what you were doing. It's a great learning and great tip for anyone struggling with similar experiences and such. But then we've talked about aerospace software here and there, but I can see, like, and then also from your interest in sci-fi, where the Fall of Aether Station might have come from. So now that we got to your game and your current project, do we want to say a bit more about what it is and what inspired it, possibly? And of course, I know the release date, but feel free to talk about that later, that too.
Okay, the release date may have shifted a little bit since
Never mind, then.
It's very close. It's just we moved it back a little bit, and that's actually an interesting discussion. But so the inspiration for the game, like I said earlier, I played a lot of Star Wars Empire at War.
Yes.
And I really like real-time strategy games. So like I spent a lot of time playing. You might have heard of it, Beyond All Reason, earlier this year, which is like an indie RTS game that really took off. And
I have not heard, but I will look it up. Yeah,
it's great. It's like I don't need to go into a spiel for it. I'm not here to talk about that game.
Okay, perfect.
But I wanted to create something that is unique, to some extent. But like my real mission for this game, like I mentioned, I made that mobile game that was really trash. And the objective of that one was to just get through the process. What does it take to release a game on the Android marketplace? What does it take? I don't care if it's good. It was a maze solving game that I tried to express some creativity in there, with some interesting game modes. They're not that fun. Don't look it up.
That's all right. Yeah.
Then
sorry to interrupt there. Then, and not necessarily in the practical way, but what does it take, do you think?
A lot of patience. There are a lot of skills you need to learn, like how do you hire freelancers? How do you vet freelancers? Like, especially on a marketplace like Fiverr, where they could just go over to somebody else's marketplace, right-click, save image as, and upload all those assets right there. Like, how do you vet them? How much do you pay them? Like, what's a fair wage? People sometimes say, and I've said this before too, and I'm not super happy with it, but it's kind of the answer I've had to go with as well. I mean, if I was offering too low, nobody would take it. But how do you determine that? Then you have to figure out, well, how do you want to present yourself to the public? What are the certification standards for a mobile game? Google has a lot of them. How do I make money off of it? So for that game, I'd honestly say it was 30% development, 70% process. Like it was kind of a grueling experience. I found some ways. I work in Game Maker Studio 2. So I had to learn an engine. I had no idea how to use the engine. I had just seen a lot of games use it. So that's what went into that one. I know I kind of just glossed over a lot, but that's kind of where those are the things that I set out to get my first experience with in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but and especially in the mobile market, which is heavily regulated in some stores, like as you say, Google has a lot of certifications and such. But back to Weather Station now.
Yeah, so and after that game, I worked on another one like a year later, which my mission in that one was to make something unique. I wanted to make something special. Still wasn't really concerned with it being good though. I'm saying that because that's important. I just wanted to see, okay, so now that I've learned the process and I've put out a game, now I'm going to make something that I want to make. So I came up with this idea where you had to like keep track of something on both sides of the screen, and movement on one side impacted the other. And I think that one's actually pretty fun if you have ADD. I found out from my wife that it gives her anxiety.
Oh no.
And some people motion sickness, but that was me taking what I'd learned and actually vetting an artist, going on Reddit and trying to find in like game dev classifieds like people that are good at this, and actually vetting some people. I got the first game I did, I got out in 6 months. That one I got out in 7, I think, start to finish. And then after that, I showed my boss at work the game, and he's like, "Oh, this is okay." You know, I'd kind of been thinking about making a game like this, and then I went home that night, prototyped it, showed it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted." And then I hired some people to help out with graphics and audio, and just like, okay, I've proven to myself that I know the engine. And then I didn't have a goal, so like now I have 3 mobile games out there. I made $1 off of all 3. I made $1 in ad revenue.
Well, you still made $1.
That was my first dollar. That was my first dollar.
That was your first dollar.
That's a huge milestone. Like, now I've made $1. I've turned a gross profit. And I have released 3 games. I've done way more than most gamers. I was pretty happy. So I stepped aside. Then the whole thing with the Halo Infinite coming out, and I'm like, well, I need a goal. So what's my goal this time? And so this game is finally, I want to make a good game. And I'm going to do what it takes. And I wanted to make something challenging. I wanted to make something that breaks the standards a little bit. So I took a tower defense game, and I'm like, how can I make this a little bit different? So I added in like ship customization. So I took from Star Wars Empire at War, each ship had like hard points that you could attack specifically, that were a specific feature on the ship. So like, I really like that idea. I think that makes a lot of sci-fi sense. So I put hard points on my ships. And I let you pick which weapon can be in those hard points. You can pick any weapon in the game and put it on any ship you want up to its hard point maximum. Like, that's cool. What else? Well, in Bloons Tower Defense, I really like their upgrade tree, but I think it can go further. So I made an upgrade tree that you can upgrade everything however you want. And you can do your playstyle. Okay, cool. What's the other thing? Well, there's always easy, medium, hard difficulties. But I've been watching a lot of stuff, and I really agree with some YouTubers on, well, difficulty is kind of dumb. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I'm going with the philosophy of I want my game to be easy, medium, hard, and impossible all at the same time. Right. So the difficulty ramps up in each way each wave, but it's divided into like, this is the easy set of waves. All right, the next set of waves is normal.
That sounds like a great approach, actually, because this way you're able to build pace. Like you can just keep the player engaged with different types of pace. Like at some point it's just a bit more easy, a bit more relaxed, and then ramps up, and then it just goes down again. I think that's a great way to approach difficulty.
But then originally that game was only supposed to take a year to develop. So this game. And then I got it out to playtesters, and people started playing it. And I got probably the most crushing feedback that I could possibly get after all of what I just talked about was, oh, it's a tower defense.
Oh, no.
I'm like, oh, I didn't do it. And this is another one of my philosophies. The harshest feedback is no feedback. Because your game wasn't even worth criticizing. Like, that's how I interpret it. It's your game was so middle of the road that I can't even think of anything bad to say about it. Like, it's so useless.
Crushing, definitely. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know which direction to go, but you've told me I desperately need to go a direction.
So it's a tower defense.
Yeah. Like, wow. I was trying to make something unique. So then over the summer, I was like, all right, I need to hire a game designer. Like, I'm really confident in my abilities to design this video game, but I am getting in my own head. I have been staring at my own code for too long. I can't see the forest from the trees. Yeah. Or whichever way that phrase goes. So I brought in a designer, and it's like, they didn't do a whole lot, but they gave me like, probably the most valuable idea to work with is it's too static. Like, it's just the movement, because you can move your ships around in real time. And I wanted that to be a huge thing. And they're like, well, there's really no reason to. Like, yeah, you can, and it's fun when you do, but there's no reason to. And so I'm like, okay, what if I made the path dynamic? What if I made the path learn how you were playing and try and counter that? And so that was a huge coding challenge. And I actually feel like I've kind of invented something with that. But so the AI knows where you've gotten good at killing it. So it knows where the funnel point is. It knows where the pinch point that you've created that you're used to doing in like Bloons Tower Defense. And it goes around it. It changes its path to avoid that area.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So now you need to move your ships around. You need to reposition. I also have the ships fighting back, so your own units can die. So you need to defend them. So like, okay, now there's a reason to move, but people were saying, well, it's still not quite good. It's like, this is a major step. Now I'm getting positive feedback and negative feedback, not as many meh feedback. Getting more of it's not for me. So I'm like, okay, I changed and something good happened. And then so it's too short. Like the levels are too short. So I had needed to find a way to not only have pathfinding that was dynamic, and it's not just pathfinding with blockers. It's I call it a resistance based pathing. Now I need to layer that on and create like mandatory points for my path and move it around. And then people were like, oh wait, hold on a second, you might be onto something here, guy. Like, I started getting more of those. I'm like, all right, we're walking the line. Okay. Like, we're working our way there, and that's where we are today. Is we're continuing to get more and more of those. Okay, hold on. You might have something here, bud.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a lot of things happen. Like the game changed in a lot of different ways, but it sounds like it's on the right path. So I guess my next question then would be, if you could go back, is there anything you would change about how you developed your game now in hindsight? Apart from, having all of these ideas at the start. But
yeah, that's probably the most crippling thing about all of this. Excuse me.
No worries.
If I were to go back and start over, I think I could develop this game in 3 months. I'm coming up on the 2-year mark. Like if I didn't have a full-time job and I knew then what I knew now just about the engine, the first thing is and I kind of knew this going into it, but I wish I had leaned into it more. Write code as if you have to rewrite it 3 more times. Like, don't develop a system that's going to suck to redevelop in 3 months. Once you've forgotten all the things, like in your comments in your code, like your header functions in your code, write the lessons learned about why you did it that way. Save yourself the headache, because this is one of the things you have to do in aerospace. Once you're done with the project, you're not done with it. That is the start of life of the project, and you need to be able to support it for its entire service life, which might be 50 years. So when you set down a piece of code, you need to make sure that if somebody comes and asks you in 20 years how this works,
you know exactly
you can
how
figure
it
it out.
And
then you have to take it a step further. In 20 years, if you're long dead, can someone else pick it up and develop it? So I try and approach my code with that mentality of just like, okay, if I have to come back to this in a year, am I going to hate my life while I do this? So it's like, okay, so rewrite it now then. Don't wait a year. Redo it now. Make it modular now. And I wish I had leaned into that heavier, because now I have some tools that are like way easier to work with. My code is way more modular. I get a ton more reuse out of my code. So before, I'd write a line of code and it would execute once in a loop. Now when I write a function, it might execute 20 or 30 times in that loop. So instead of writing one line of code to get one behavior, now I've written one line of code and I get 30 behaviors out of it. Like my coding is so much more efficient.
I see.
And bug finding is way easier.
Yeah, well, of course. Then it makes things a lot easier. Yeah, you know, designing good code is an art. I always say that, and I've always heard from everybody. So, yeah, it's it takes time and practice, but yeah, you know, sustainability is very important. And I guess now we get to my favorite question out of this entire set, and you probably know already what it is. Based on everything you told me today, why do you think you are a game developer? What is it that drives you forward?
There's a lot of reasons. I want to have fun, for one thing. The other is I want to be self-employed. Like, I want to be able to wake up on a nice summer day and wake up my daughter and say, I'm not going to work today. Let's go do something fun. Let's have a snow day. Let's have a fun day at the park today. Let's do something.
A snow day in summer.
Yeah, I know. I heard it too. Like, as I said that, I'm like, somebody's gonna say this, but I'm not gonna correct myself. So like,
a snow day in summer. That's a good image anyway. Yes, depends where you are. But yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing to. It's basically freedom. You're telling me freedom from anything but yourself.
Yeah, and like, I want people to have fun. Like, I want to make something that people enjoy. Like, I want to. I don't want to be like remembered or like, oh, you're this huge. I don't have aspirations to be like Phil Spencer or anything.
Okay.
But I do want, like, I would love it if one day, like, I hear people saying, oh, Nibble and Bite Game Studio. Yeah, they make good games.
Oh.
That would be like, I've done it.
Warm and fuzzy feeling just right there. Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And like, I'd love to. The biggest thing that I want to do, or one of them, like in my day job, is I like helping people in their careers. I like working. Mentorship is kind of, that's why I'm in management. Like the servant leadership, the thing. So if I can, I want to bring as many people along with me on my journey. I want to uplift as many people as I can that may not have had an opportunity to do this, but they have great ideas, they have great skills, like they have the right aptitudes, but they don't have the management abilities, or they don't have the connections or stuff like that. Like, I'd love to bring people along and improve the industry as a whole, I guess.
Yeah, well, those are all great reasons, actually. Some of them I may have heard before, but a lot of them I definitely have not. So yeah, especially I like the image of you, of someone, of course, waking up on a summer day and be like, yeah, I don't want to work today. I just want to spend some time with my loved ones and my daughter. That's great. And yeah, I do wish you that you actually do. I suppose you will get there because you have a lot of passion and dedication for what you're doing. You have a lot of method, and that is not something that everybody has, method and discipline. So I think I do wish you all the best there. But we're not there yet with wishes and such, because I have a couple more questions for you. And I guess the counterpart of this question that I've just asked you is, what drives you backwards? Like, what is your biggest struggle as an indie developer?
Yeah, there's a lot of those too. Imposter syndrome for one. You probably hear that one a lot.
I've heard that, yeah.
Especially from like people that are successful. What else? The phenomena, not phenomena, but like you have to like you have to buy your own shit, you know? Like you got to believe in yourself enough for 20 people, because sometimes it feels like for every one person that supports you, 20 don't believe you'll make it. And so you got to, when it's just you got to overcome that like really hard. And so pushing through those mental barriers of, yeah, you're right, 80% of indie games make less than $1,000, 90 less than 10, and I think it's only like 4% break above 100. It's like, well, if I spend 2 years on this and I only make 90, well, I was definitely better off just working overtime at my job instead of putting all my time and resources into this, because it costs money. Like I don't have a publisher. It's just me. It's my own wallet. It's however much I make at my job. And after I take care of my family and stuff, that's how much I put into it. The financials are tough. What else in there? Scammers suck. I've gotten scammed twice. Luckily, not for too much. And one of them was a pretty good scam. I'll give it to them. The person that scammed me that first time was like, all right, you got me. I played EVE Online for the longest time, so I felt like I'm pretty good against scammers. Like I'm pretty good at recognizing that. The other one, I was just being dumb. I should have known. My faith in humanity won out when it shouldn't have.
Yeah, well, it happened. It does happen, unfortunately. Scammers, especially, some of them are really good at pulling at your heartstrings.
Some of them are really good, yeah.
Incredibly good, but yeah.
So those are the two.
I guess it's fine. I mean, if you don't think there's anything else, you can leave it there. I think you've said some really, really important things there already.
I think the last one is just understanding that, like, if this game doesn't do well, that's still part of the plan. My whole plan is, in order to be a self-sustaining indie company, I personally believe that I need to get 5 games out there.
Yeah, no,
and this is just number 1.
Yeah.
So if this one does better than 0, I'm on plan. I'm going according to plan. Anything above 0 is, hey, we're doing great. We're trending the direction we want to be.
Yeah, just giving yourself the time to succeed, because of course you may pour all your heart and soul into a project and then it's hard to see where you're going, but I see exactly what you mean. Well, I guess we just have a couple of questions left, and these might be a bit more fun. One of them will not necessarily be, might be very deep. But say, so imagine writing a letter to yourself, but 3 years younger, which is around the time when you said you discovered that you had undiagnosed ADD. What would you say? Or you might go even further back than that, because, you might want to send an encouragement to your former self even before you find that out.
This is going to sound cliche, but start. And
all right,
the only thing I would add to it is just start right. Set up your your agile stuff. Set up your Trello, your whatever backlog management system you do. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just get at it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know how much time you're gonna have, like, for free time going forward, but you know how much you have today. So, if it's what you want to do.
I like that.
You don't know how much time you have tomorrow, but you know how much time you have today. So, spend it, use it, but don't lose sight of the other stuff. Like, make sure that if this fails, like, you don't regret like how you spent your time.
It's a really good point, and I really like what you said about you don't know how much free time you're gonna have tomorrow, but you know how much you have today. It's something that I don't remind myself nearly as often as I should. So, well, I guess this might be a fun question just to wrap it up. If you had unlimited budget and time, what game would you create?
That's a really good question. So this is the thing that I hear from people that they say it's kind of weird and abnormal, but I don't know if it actually is. I don't have a dream game. Like there's no, I mean, like, yeah, I said like I'd love to work on Halo, but like since then, like it's grown into such a bigger dream than that. Like to thinking like, would I even want to take a job at a different studio? Like if I could. So if I had unlimited time, so that was what you just saw was my ADD taking my brain someplace else, and I had to reel it in and be like, no, that's the question he asked. We're going that direction, not that way, that way. And that's why your backlog management is so important, developers, because your brain does that too. It's not just ADD. It's really strong for me. I don't know if I'd need like an unlimited budget for the games I want to make. Like I can't right now, for the life of me, I can't think of a game that I would need more than $1 million to develop. I'd love to take The Fall of Aether Station, which is currently a 2D top down. I'd love to take that in the future. It's not going to be the next game, but somewhere down the line, turning that into like a 3D graphics heavy kind of game, which I'm probably naive in thinking that would be under $1 million. I have a few ideas for games that I want to create yet. The next game I want to make so I'm making a good game. The next game I want to make is a beautiful game. Something that I could classify as, wow, this is visually a work of art. Like this is beautiful to look at. I think The Fall of Aether Station is quite beautiful. I really love the art style. Believe it or not, but it's done by 3 artists that never once met each other. So I don't know if that's a credit to my directing ability or the dumb luck of me thinking that I could do it with 3 different artists. It's probably the latter. I kind of want to do like a tribute to Pikmin almost at some point in time. I want to make a horror game. I have an idea for that. But I don't think there's anything that's like, man, if I could develop anything right now, what with that unlimited money. I think those are the things. I want to make a factory game, I want to make a beautiful game, and I want to make a horror game at some point. Those are the three games on my list, and
well, with enough budget, the horror game could become a nice marketing machine for your other games too, because then if it's another Lethal Company or another, I don't know, there's so many, another Slenderman or whatever they are, then another Visage, all of those horror games that become viral because influencers play them. Working in social media, I know how powerful influencers can be. So horror games, we
talked
all
about
the way.
Hot takes a little bit earlier, but my hot take is Lethal Company isn't a horror game; it's a comedy.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's very true. When you play it with others, it's just so fun.
And that's kind of why I think I'll need 5 games to get out there, is because I think I'll need a couple games to just establish the name in the community, and then the last 2 will be like real shots on goal. You know, like, all right, we're going big this time.
Well, I think it's time for some parting words now. I would say thank you so much, Jake, for being my guest today. It's been lovely speaking to you, and we've raised some interesting points, some very important points too. I guess my next question for you and final question would be, where can other people find you? And if they do, what is the best way to support you?
So the best way and the primary way is find our game on Steam, The Fall of Aether Station. Wish lists, like waking up every morning and seeing that number go up even just by 1. Like that's huge motivation for a developer. Even if it doesn't change, but I can see there was an add and a delete, like even that, there's something happening, that feels really good. So that's the biggest way to support any indie developer, is just, even if you're never going to engage, just give them a follow. We don't do a whole lot on YouTube, but I've been trying to post a little bit more there. I think it's Under the Fall of Aether Station or Nibble and Bite. We're like the only ones that have done videos for the game so far. We've got a few influencers that have picked it up. We also have a Discord. Love to chat about really anything. The game, just game development or whatever's going on. It's just kind of a casual Discord with like 3 people talking in it. So we'd love to have more people hanging out there. I think that's really it. If you download the demo on Steam, there's links to our Discord and YouTube and Twitter accounts in there. Perfect. So all you have to do is go to Steam and the links are there.
Yeah. But also, in any case, I'm going to put all of these links in the description of the episode, as I always do, so that people can check you out. And just if you want to follow Jake and what he's doing, just head to the description of this indie diary, and you'll be able to find all the relevant links there. But yeah, again, there's nothing else that I could say to you, Jake. Thank you again for being an amazing guest today. I wish you all the best, really, truly, with all that you want to do. You have some great dreams there, some great... you say you don't have big aspirations, but simple aspirations can be big too. So I really do think that you're going to succeed. Right. And yeah, best of luck.
Thanks, and thanks for having me. It's been great, and I loved your previous episodes as well. So it's been fun listening to all the other developers' insights that you've garnered on this podcast, and it's fun to be here.
Thank you so much. And so, my friends, that's a wrap on another episode of the Indie Diarist podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you to Jake for being an amazing guest. I loved hearing your story. I loved hearing your motivation. And, I do think that you're going to succeed. You've got the drive, you've got the ambition, you've got the aspirations, even though you don't think you do. And I can't wait to see what you do next. Also, best of luck with Heather Station. It's going to be such a beautiful game, I'm sure. So, if you enjoyed the episode, guys, please subscribe to the show because it means so much. You can find it everywhere, even on YouTube now, starting, since January the 9th for the anniversary of the show. But also, I would love if you wanted to leave a rating, 5 stars, 4 stars, whatever you want. It pleases the algorithm and it helps the show so much. You can also go to patreon.com where you can join my amazing Patreons to show me some more support, or to theindiediarist.com if you want to follow me on social media or join the Discord channel. So, lastly, as usual, if you are an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch. I don't have a lot of slots available for the first half of the year, but I'm going to find one for you later. You can rest assured.